Okay. Oh, that's not you guys. There you are. Okay, so this is where we left off when we were in person last week. The purpose of these videos are to help you out if you don't understand certain aspects. You'll hear me kind of explain these things rather than if you were just reading the notes that you'd be like, oh, shoot, I don't really get it or understand a certain thing, then I can actually talk through those explanations for you. So you should be watching this 13R through 14R, depending on if you are an A day or B day, on the 18th or the 19th. We are going to go through, like I said, 13R through 14R. The next video is going to go through 15L through 17R. And then the final video will go through 18L and 18R. By the end of those 3 videos, you should have taken notes on all of them. You guys are aware of my expectations. You understand that you get a notebook grade at the end of each unit. So this should not be a surprise to you that you are being asked to take notes. You will get a grade 1 in general for doing this work when you return. You will get a grade. You will get a notebook grade, just like you normally would if we were meeting in person or doing this online sort of seminar. And then you will also take a quiz over pages 13L through 18R to, again, enforce the importance of taking these notes and these concepts. So this first video is 13R through 14R, so let's jump right in, I guess. So we've got on the left-hand side how a bill becomes a law. And then on the right-hand side, we're going to talk about how ways to kill a bill. But yeah, don't worry, guys. I can still create puns from behind the computer screen. So on 13R, we're going to talk about the perilous life of Bill, so how Bill can die. We're going to talk about how bills die in committee. They can also be saved, but the one way that bills die in committee is through pigeonholed. So this happens in these stages right here. So throughout this committee in the House, and then the House Rules Committee, and then over here in the Senate through the committee and Majority Leader Mitch McConnell. So this is where they've either been proposed or arrived from either house. They get to the committee where they're revised, approved, so on, and this is where they would get disproved. They would get pigeonholed, and essentially what would happen is they kind of, you know the phrase, put a pin in it, meaning like hold on to that thought, we'll come back to it. That's kind of what a pigeonhole is, but it would essentially never come back to it, and they would just kind of, it would fall to the wayside. The way that it can get out of a pigeonhole is through a discharge petition. And this says that, oh, hey, like this bill is important, we need to vote on it. A majority of the people in the House think that we should vote on this bill. It needs to either go to the Senate or it needs to go to the president. It's important. Take it out of the pigeonhole. Release it to us. That is a discharge petition, and that saves a bill from dying in committee. So bills can also die on the floor. Obviously, if they are debated on and voted on and people vote no, the majority of the people vote no, then it dies. However, bills can die on the floor in a different way. So in the House, floor debate is super limited because there are 435 people who want to talk about the same things. That's a lot of people. So Nancy Pelosi, the Speaker of the House, has to regulate and say, okay, Representative Joe Cunningham, you have 3 minutes to speak on this. And then Representative Klobuchar, you have this, I think she's a senator, but you get my gist. You have X amount of minutes to speak on this time, and so on. In the Senate, there's only 100 people. So floor debate is really unlimited. All that really has to happen is a senator has to get the attention of the president of the Senate, who is Mike Pence, and they'll say, Mr. President, may I please address the body or whatever. And then the president of the Senate will say, sure, like I recognize you through a process of recognition. And once the president of the Senate, again, Mike Pence, once Mike Pence has given his approval to speak, that senator can do with what he wants, or she. They can speak for a minute. They can speak for 45 minutes. They could speak for 14 hours if they wanted to. That is called a filibuster. It's a stalling technique in order to prevent a bill from going to the floor. And how that works is, remember where we have the calendar and the agenda? They only have X amount of time to get through X amount of things. So if they run out of time, then they can't vote on that bill because then they have to move on to the next bill. So the bill dies. I will post a few videos of some filibusters because they can really talk about anything. The only things that they have to do is they have to remain standing. They're not allowed to sit down. They're not allowed to leave, and they cannot stop talking. You cannot go up to the podium and just stand there for 12 hours. You have to continue talking. So a lot of times people will run out of things to say, and they'll start to read books aloud. They'll read scripts. They will read the Constitution, anything. Ted Cruz, a senator from Texas, who also ran for president in 2016, he read green eggs and ham to his daughters because you know how you can watch like C-SPAN on TV and watch Congress play out. He legit read a bedtime story to his children. But so they run out of time, and that's how the bill dies. The cloture rule can end a filibuster and force a vote if 60 members sign this petition to essentially say, cut the crap, we need to vote on this now, we're done, I'm not sitting through this anymore. Because of how partisan our country is nowadays, this doesn't typically happen. It would kind of be a slap in the face if you were a Democrat and you were filibustering and other Democrats said, we're not with you, we would rather force a vote. So this doesn't really happen that often, but this cloture rule could save a filibuster, or excuse me, a bill from dying via filibuster. Now, a silent filibuster is if the minority party can prove that it has 41 supporters, meaning preventing a true 3/5 majority. Those 41 supporters would say, hey, I'm perfectly fine with sitting through this filibuster, so we can either actually sit through it for 14 hours or we can just not and say we did, and the bill will just go ahead and die. So an example of this is, let's say that in the Senate, remember, Republicans have majority. So let's say that there is a pro-life bill in the Senate, which means that we would get rid of abortions. Pro-life means anti-abortion. So let's say we're in the Senate and Lindsey Graham, who's one of our senators, is prepared to vote for this bill. He's like, heck yeah, man, we're doing it, going forward. Chuck Schumer, who is the minority leader, a Democrat, would stand up and say, hey, we cannot let this bill pass because we know that there are 53 Republicans in the House, or excuse me, in the Senate that would vote yes on this pro-life bill. And we cannot let this happen as Democrats. We cannot let this happen. So he will threaten a filibuster, meaning that he would threaten to stall and talk and talk and talk. Now he might also threaten a silent filibuster by saying, hey, Lindsay, I have 45 Democrats on my side, and all of them say that we will sit through a filibuster. We will sit the hours and hours and hours. So I've got 45, which means that you cannot force to end the filibuster because you don't have 60. I have more than 41. So do you want to sit through the 14-hour, 15-hour filibuster? Or do you just want to not and say we did and the bill just dies anyway? Okay, so it's kind of like calling a bluff sort of deal. But yeah. All right, this is what I like to call the power diamond. And if one political party takes over all aspects of the power diamond, it's wow, intense. So as of right now, we have this sort of power diamond. Okay, Donnie T is our president. He is a Republican. The Senate, remember this is Mitch McConnell. And the Senate is Republican. The Supreme Court is, now you'll never hear a Supreme Court or really any justice or judge say, I am Republican or Democratic or Libertarian or Green Party or whatever. They have to technically be nonpartisan, right? Because they have to decide between, they have to be impartial because they're judges. So, but you will be able to read their decisions on certain court cases, and from there you can kind of figure out if they are more liberal-minded or if they are more conservative-minded. As of right now, we are a conservative Supreme Court. Then our House of Representatives, remember there's Nancy, there's her majority leader, Steny, and then there's the majority whip, Jim Clyburn. They are all Democrats, okay? So Democrats have a kind of hard battle to fight right now. So then there's Chuck Schumer saying, I'm left with only one option as the filibuster in the Senate in order to fight for their policies, morals, so on. Okay. And then we have Donnie T, who has 4 options of how a bill becomes a law. He has the first one of signing it, thus it becomes a law. That's the most straightforward option we have. The second most straight option we have is a formal veto. And this is where he refuses to sign the bill, he does not pass it, and it goes back to Congress with an explanation. It does not have to be a great and flowery, beautiful explanation, but an explanation nonetheless. After this, taking no action is, so if after 10 days and Congress is still in session, meaning they are still debating, writing laws, passing laws, all the things, they are still actively working. If Donald Trump does not sign it or formally veto it, it becomes a law. Because remember the idea of the override veto, where if Donald Trump formally vetoes the law, then it could go back to Congress and Congress would be able to override said veto with a 2/3 vote. So this is kind of like by default, if he takes no action with Congress still in session after 10 days, he is still a law. Then we have a pocket veto, and a pocket veto is if Congress does not stay in session, if it goes out of session and Donald Trump does nothing with it, then the bill dies. Because, going back to that override veto, let's say Donald Trump formally vetoes a pro-choice bill. He formally vetoes it, and it can't go back to Congress to be overridden because Congress isn't there. So then, therefore, if they're still not there after 10 days, it just stays vetoed, right? It doesn't get overturned or anything like that because it doesn't have a chance to. So those are our 4 options for the president. He can sign it, it becomes a law, formal veto, take no action, and pocket veto. Move through some of these graphics. Okay, so this is a graphic that is going up on 14L. Do not feel like you have to try to print it out or cut it out, color it, whatever. You can if you would like to, but you do not have to. I will give you a copy of this when we get back. So 14R is going to talk about the elections of Congress. Every 2 years, all 435 representatives from the House run for re-election. Remember, because their terms are for 2 years. So they run during presidential years, which would be like this year, 2020. They also run during midterms. These are called midterm elections, and those are run in the middle, midterm, of a presidential election. So previously we had Mark Sanford over and over again. He was beaten out by the Republican candidate, Katie Atkinson. From there, it was Katie Atkinson and Joe Cunningham. Joe Cunningham won, so he is our representative. At the same time that all of the representative seats are up for grabs, 1/3 of the Senate runs, because remember, they run on 6-year terms. This was to highlight, I just realized that this is wrong now. This was to highlight which session of Congress we are in. We are in the second session of the 116th Congress. We are no longer in the first session because this was 2019 and obviously now it's 2020. This is Lindsey Graham. This is Tim Scott. He will be up. No, which one? This one. This one will be up for re-election in 2022, and then Tim Scott will be up for re-election in 2026. Congressional elections are during even-numbered years on the same day as normal election day, first Tuesday after the first Monday in November, just like presidential elections. Reason for that is because you know how dates like St. Patrick's Day, Valentine's Day, Christmas, Easter, they all move around the calendar. They're always on that specific day, such as March 17th is always St. Patrick's Day, but sometimes it's on a Saturday, sometimes it's on a Wednesday. This was to make it as even as possible to make sure that one senator or one representative was not serving more than another. Each congressional term is 2 years long. Okay, so over here you can see congressional terms. And then each calendar year is referred to as a session of that term. So therefore, we are currently in, this should say second. We are in the second session of the 116th congressional term. Process for readjusting the House of Representatives for a changing population. So people move in, people move out, and we have to kind of move around those 435 representatives, right? Because, like I said, there are a lot of people moving into South Carolina. There are a lot of people moving out of Illinois. There are a lot of people moving into Colorado. So we have to kind of readjust how many people are in the House for which state. So first we start off with a census. A census is every 10 years we count the total population and figure out how many people live where. The census should be out already, or it's coming out here soon. And it's a very in-depth snapshot of what our country looks like. And it asks a lot of questions of who are you? Are you black? Are you white? Are you purple? Are you green? Are you orange? Are you married? Are you not married? Why aren't you married? Is it because you're still single, or is it because you're divorced? Are you separated? Are you a widow? How many kids do you have? Do you have kids? Are they your biological kids? How many, so on and so forth. It's really just to get the most accurate snapshot of the total population within our country, our state, cities, so on. From there, we have to reapportion everything. So we have to figure out, okay, so X amount of people have moved into Colorado. In order to have a representative, or one representative equals 700,000 people. So years ago, 140, nope, math, Hillman. 1.4 million people. Let's just go with that. 1.4 million people moved into the state of South Carolina. So that let us get 2 more representatives. Okay, so we reapportioned everything. So we used to be, I thought we used to be 5 districts. Just kidding. So only 700,000 people moved into South Carolina. So that allowed us to get another district, right? So we used to have 6, now we have 7, and that means that we get another representative. From there, we had to redraw the lines, right? You can see that District 1 used to be all the way up here, and now it's down here. We kind of connected all of these. We are in District 1. I'm not really sure why they jumped around so much, but that's just how they decided to number them. But yeah, so after we've reapportioned all of the different 435 representatives, we have to redraw the new lines. Gerrymandering, I'm going to skip through this quickly. I'll find another video for you guys about gerrymandering. And this just means that you are redistricting your state in a way that gives you a political advantage. It's cheating. You are not allowed to do that. And like I said, I'll find another video about gerrymandering for those that are interested, but it's not on your test or anything like that, so I'm not going to waste your guys' time on it. But yeah, so that's all I have for this section. This is day 1. So yeah, this is all you have to do for me today. That's all I have to say. All right.